Now, this is a show that's dedicated to the new economy. When you talk about the old economy, the Narendra Modi government has been saying things like the government has no business being in business. But is that only for the old economy? What about the unicorns, startups that the government is looking to regulate, whether it's predatory pricing or the level playing field or the marketplace definition when it comes to e-commerce companies, or to the latest, which is of charging a commission on fees levied by Uber as well as Ola. Is it right? Does the government have any business doing so? I'm going to be taking that conversation forward with one of Ola Cab's early investors, Rehan Yar Khan, who takes great pride in saying that he likes to back misfits. Of course, Ola cannot be called a misfit in that sense, so much so that Bhavish Agarwal, the founder, has decided to drive into London, even as Uber is facing huge problems there with the mayor. Good entrepreneurial sense, right? Rehan, welcome to Startup Central. Thank you for joining us. I know you're in Chandigarh. You've already tweeted about this, about how it's unfair. I understand you're one of the early investors, and this is something that's not going to be taken down very well. But wouldn't this also mark maybe for the first time that you're going to see the government getting into this kind of micromanagement or into this kind of nitty-gritty, which is that how much commission can be charged? It doesn't do so across businesses.
Absolutely, Nayantara. You're absolutely right. And I think, price regulation, not just in the taxi business, but in any business is very, very unfortunate, because what price regulation means is that you are interfering with the free market, and you're sort of destroying that. And the very premise of a free market is that if you have enough competition, price will regulate itself. So where they should be putting energy is in competition and not putting energy in prices, because what that does is that creates artificial forces and doesn't let the free market function. So whether it's in airlines, whether it's in telecom, or now in cabs, or in any other industry, one should not have price controls. Right? They create a lot of issues. I think one of your journalists from from the Economic Times.
Rehan, if I could, sorry to just interrupt you over there, because when you have policy uncertainty, it also drives away capital, right? It makes all stakeholders very, very uneasy. We don't know as yet, we don't have anybody on record as yet to say that yes, we will indeed be capping the fees. Remember, also transportation falls under state and center. If the center opens this up, each state is going to have its own set of rules. So let's say I get into an Ola or an Uber in Gurgaon and I come to work in Noida. I have to be in 3 states, right? It can become very messy. What is it also going to mean for just doing business?
Absolutely, Nayantara. I think you hit the nail on the head. This is not about this industry alone. The signal that they're sending out to all industries, all foreign investors, all domestic investors, is that we can regulate prices if we want to, and we will go down that route. So any business person, any entrepreneur, any conglomerate, before setting up a new venture, will now think twice, because they'll think that, hey, my price can just be regulated. All the investments I have made, which I hope to recoup by having certain pricing, I may not be able to do that. I think it's an extremely negative signal. It's not just about autos. Yes, it can get very messy. Like you said, all the complexities of state can come in. But as a signaling effect globally for investors, I think is extremely scary.
Because this is also coming, about 12 to 18 months after what we saw happen with, let's say, to Amazon as well as Flipkart when it did with the Walmart acquisition, how the definition of the marketplace had been changed. And, we don't want to really have a reputation that you first come to India, capital inflows take place, and then changes do take place. But on the flip side, and I'm a journalist, I'm going to play the role of a devil's advocate. You're upset as an investor. But on the flip side, we also deal with things like pollution. Right? We don't have the best of public transportation systems everywhere, and therefore have Ola and Uber also misbehaved in not rising to the occasion or looking at surge pricing on a lot of occasions when they shouldn't have, and that's something that they do globally.
So, Nayantara, that's just the marketplace that is playing out. I think you started this segment very interestingly by saying Ola is entering the UK market. Right? So what has happened in the UK market is Uber has a very high commission on their drivers, and Ola has seen that as an opportunity that we can enter the market and we can wean away a number of drivers here. Now let's look at what the government is saying. The government is not saying that we want to cap the prices that they charge to you. The government is saying that we want to cap the commission that Ola and Uber are going to charge to their respective drivers, right? So this is not about surge pricing, this is not about price control, but this is about the amount of profit that the companies can make. And I think it's absolutely unnecessary because the minute a company makes a high amount of profit, other players will rush in to normalize that, right? Just like we are seeing in the UK with Ola rushing into the UK to wean away drivers from Uber.
You know, and Rehan, can you give us an idea on how all the investors and stakeholders have reacted ever since this report came out?
Well, you know, I mean, just going by all the tweets, I think everybody is in shock that you know, something like this has happened, because it is not just, and I think you brought up a very interesting point, right? This whole point of bait and switch that is going on in India. We have seen industry after industry where policy is being changed post facto. So in telecom, I think you're aware of all the massive losses which have taken place. You know, the policy changed, and you know, the rules are very difficult. So that industry is making losses. Coal blocks, that industry is making losses. Airlines, that industry is making losses. You know, then you have e-commerce, where you have this whole thing which has been going on, like you said, for about 18 months. Now you've got taxis. So I mean, the signal which is being sent out from India is that we don't allow people to make a profit, right? We want to cap that profit, or we are going to change policy in such a manner that if
I'm going to play devil's advocate here too, because you know, this is the one segment of our economy which is so exciting and full of exuberance. So even despite that entire e-commerce flip-flop and changes in definition and all of that, India has really been a darling when it comes to deal flows, investment inflows as far as startups go. Look at Paytm, for example. We're talking the same week as Paytm being able to raise $1 billion. It's in the market once again to raise another $1 billion.
Sure.
Look at Ola itself. It's now talking about an IPO. It's restructuring its company to be IPO ready. A lot of you have also made money. So while, yeah, there are problems, let's put it in context as well, right?
So let's look at an older industry. Let's look at telecom, right? Are we going to receive investments for 5G? I think it's going to be very difficult, right? Because I think investments were made in 3G, investments were made in 4G, and massive losses have been made in there. Are we going to receive investments for 5G? I think it's a big question. So the same thing is happening in a new industry, which is the online industry. You are making investments. So don't forget, investments is people's hard-earned money, which is being sent to India or being invested within India in companies. That money expects a return. If that money is not going to get a return, future investments in that same industry are not going to be made. Just like we are seeing in the telecom industry, I think 5G is going to be a problem.
Yeah. And 5G being a problem will, of course, then have an impact also on all of you guys. Fintech, new technology, the next form of disruption as well. Can I now ask you that while we've seen the tweets, do you know if we're going to see the investors? And you know, when you talk about Ola and Uber, there's one very big common investor, right? Like that's why that entire talk of the merger also comes in. SoftBank. Are we also going to be looking at instances where we're going to see Alibaba and all of these guys get together and go to the government?
Yes, I think that is what is happening. So we are seeing that in telecom. You've started seeing that the telecom, in e-commerce, right? You're seeing that the e-commerce companies, Walmart and Amazon, have gone to their government in the United States, and they're asking their government now to speak to India. Right, and you're seeing the same thing in telecom. You're seeing the same thing in other industries. So I think it's a very unfortunate state of affairs where you know our government is doing certain things. Foreign players then have to rush to their government, spend a lot of energy. That government then comes to India and lobbies hard, and internally we have to do the same thing. So instead of being able to concentrate on your business, being able to produce things, you're spending a lot of time trying to do this, and sometimes it gets fixed and sometimes it doesn't get fixed. But does India have a great reputation in the bargain? I think not.
Okay, you were also the first investor in Ola, one of the first investors in Ola. Let's drive down that journey. It's turned out to be a very fantastic misfit. The reason I keep saying misfit is because that's how Rehan introduces himself in his bio on Twitter. It's now, making a global play, and did so before London. It's been part of the Lyft camp as far as going against Uber goes. And of course, Ola now looking at financial services, electric cars, all of that. What are your expectations now from Ola going forward? Because even as the company expands, there are of course a lot of naysayers who say that the financials are not good, it's expanding too fast, it's a beast of sorts.
So Nayantara, first I'll explain the misfits part. When we invested in Ola, they were an unknown company. Everybody was telling them that, yaar, aap kya kar rahe ho? This is not going to work. There was no Uber at that time when we made our investment. So that is the misfit stage. So we back companies which are at that very early stage, which don't have a product, which don't have a validation for their product. So that's why the tag misfits. Coming specifically to Ola, see, I think one thing which we all know about the founders is that they're very smart and they are always experimenting. They're always launching new things. Some of those things work, some of those things don't work. They've launched buses and they've launched all kinds of things, and some of those things haven't worked, but I think electric seems to be working. I think their Ola Money seems to be working. I think their overseas play seems to be working. So I think they have many pockets and angles from which they will keep on expanding the business. And they are of that mindset, and they have this terrific habit of trying new things. So that's going to serve them very well.
And just a quick word, it has ambitions as far as IPOs go. So as far as an IPO goes, and while it's still making losses, this entire move as far as restructuring and layoffs go, part of business?
Yeah, you have to at some point become bottom line focused. That you have to undertake, you have to restructure the company to make that happen. I'm very glad that they're focused on that. It seems to have caught the media attention. I saw some print media on that today. It'd be fantastic, absolutely fantastic for India, for the e-commerce industry, for overseas investors to see Ola IPO and IPO in India. And I think the government, everybody should be focused on that. As somebody tweeted, how do you expect companies to IPO when the IPO market expects profits and you want to cap profits? So on one side, you want these companies to IPO, on the other side, you're saying, hey, I'm going to cap your profits. The two just doesn't make sense. On one side, you have Startup India, Stand Up India, but how does all this come together?
That's absolutely right. That's exactly what we began the interview by saying also. Rehan, I'm going to make this my final question to you. Ola and Uber are unicorns many times over. They are the success stories when it comes to shared mobility. We have seen a lot of enthusiasm when it comes to shared mobility being seen as an opportunity, not just whether to do with taxis, but look at what's happening, for example, with electric vehicles, bus fleets are being talked about, you've got two-wheelers, all of that. Do you think this move by the government to cap fees is suddenly going to have a huge impact on shared mobility, or there will be no knee-jerk reaction?
Well, so Nayantara, I take heart by the fact that India is a democracy, and I take heart by the fact that we publish draft rules and then we invite feedback like a democracy should, right? So I'm taking heart from the fact that they've put this draft rule out there and they're inviting people's feedback, and I think a lot of sense will go in as part of that feedback before they finalize that rule. So I take heart from that. However, if the rule does come, I think it is going to send shockwaves across not just the transportation sector, which is a very large industry. If you think about it, it may be the world's largest industry because everybody needs to move around. But then the signal is, if I can cap this industry, I can cap every other industry. So that is going to be an issue going forward.
Rehan, with that, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks so much for joining us here. On a cheeky note, do you only use Ola or do you also use Uber? I
try to use Ola as much as possible, of course, and so should you.
So you don't have the Uber app?
I do have the Uber app, yes. But I click on the Ola app more.
And one last question to you, this is going to be even more cheeky as an investor, and that to the first investor. Do you have to wait as much as us sometimes to get a cab, or is there like a VIP list on Ola for its investors?
I wish those were the perks of investing, that my parcels would arrive faster, or my food would arrive faster, or my cabs would arrive faster, but unfortunately not.
Okay, Rehan, thanks so much for
Thank
joining us
you.
and for being
Bye-bye.
such a sport during this interview.